Hey everyone, today I am back in Lost Ark as we just had our new class, the Valkyrie, released in the game a couple of days ago. And so today I want to kind of take a look at the two different builds that are available for her. She is a support, but also as a DPS build. And I'll do a little bit of show and tell about how the skills function, how they work, the build setups themselves, and then give my thoughts on the class itself towards the end of the video. So let's just jump straight into it and let's start with the DPS build. Now the DPS build is going to be mostly focused around her identity gauge, as that is what your main focus will be, to fill up quickly, spend it on a very powerful DPS skill, and then activate a damage buff to buff the rest of your damaging skills. So let me just very quickly give myself full identity gauge because we're in Trixion. The way it works is very simple. You press the X button, this will give you that very big and powerful skill. Then you press the Z button, which is going to be empowering your next 3 main DPS skills. And then you kind of just go back to just whacking the boss a bunch to get yourself back to that full identity gauge, which doesn't really take all that long either. So you just have to press a couple more skills. Just one more and then we'll be there. Just have to wait a little bit. There we go. Press the X button again, big damage, press the Z button, and then we can spend again on our main DPS skills. And that's pretty much her playstyle. So the cool thing about this one as well is that you can just spam your skills against the air and you don't actually have to hit the boss in order to build up identity gauge. So if the boss is not there, there's a mechanic going on that prevents you from hitting the boss. You can still just kind of fight the air and still fill up your identity gauge, so that when it is go time, you can just go in, apply your synergy, and immediately just go back to whacking the boss over the head with all of your strong DPS skills. So that's kind of how that works. In terms of the skills themselves, let me just quickly reset my cooldowns. So we have 3 supportive skills, we've got 2 sub-DPS skills, 2 main DPS skills, and a filler skill. Let's start with the utility skills first. This one is our synergy, and as you can see, this one has very bad range on it. You can take range on the skill if you want, but then you are going to be losing paralysis immunity. So with it being a synergy skill, you probably want the paralysis on there, which, by the way, if you do take it, then only this skill doesn't have paralysis immunity on it. Everything else does, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so that's an option. You could choose to go for range on the skill or paralysis. It's kind of up to you. It also doubles as a counter skill, so if you hit them in the head during a counter pattern, then that skill will also counter for you. Secondly, we have another synergy skill. This is a dash and a stab. This one has some very good range on it, so that kind of makes up for the low range of Foresight Slash. And on top of also being a synergy skill, this one will also apply a movement speed buff to you for a couple of seconds. This is one of the skills that allows us to use Raid Captain in our build. And then the last utility skill looks like this. This is another counter, and this one will also apply the movement speed buff to you. And on top of that, it also has 2 charges. So having a counter ready on this class, it's basically always going to be there, because you have a skill with 2 charges that can counter, and then you have a second counter as well. So you can just go like 1, 2, 3, and all of those are counter skills. And then we also have 2 skills that will keep up our synergy. So this is one synergy skill, this is another synergy skill. And then we have 1 movement skill, movement speed skill with 2 charges, of course, and then yet another movement speed skill. So keeping up Raid Captain, keeping up Adrenaline, keeping up like your movement speed, your synergy, all very easy on this class. So then we have our 2 sub-DPS skills. The first one looks like this. This skill has push immunity on it, so really nice. And the second one looks like this. This one doesn't have paralysis. It's the only skill that doesn't have it. But it's also a very short animation, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. Like, you can just kind of mix this in really quickly when the boss can't hit you. And then we have 2 main DPS skills. This is the strongest one. This one also has a small explosion time. And then this is your second strongest DPS skill. Last but not least, we then also have a filler skill. And what you decide to put here depends a little bit on your personal preference. For me, I ended up putting Execution of Revelation here, a 3rd DPS skill, looks like this. And the reason why I did this is because it just kind of makes more sense to me. Whenever we press our Z skill, the one that gives us the damage buff, it gives us 3 stacks to spend this damage buff on. One will be on our main DPS skill, the second will be on our slightly weaker main DPS skill, and the third will be on our T skill. Now, our T skill is not going to be available every single damage cycle, so every other damage cycle we'll have to use something that's not our T skill. That's where Execution of Revelation comes into play. However, if you decide to not play this, you're just kind of sitting on one damage stack that is going to waste. Doesn't actually decrease your DPS that much, because if you were to use the other skill, which would be Meteor Strike, this one over here, this one has a shorter cooldown, has 2 charges, and it makes it so that you can rotate through your cycle much faster, as you'll be filling up your identity gauge much faster. So the main difference between these two builds is that when using Execution of Revelation, you have a stronger damage cycle, whereas if you're using Meteor Strike, you have a faster damage cycle. So if you have a long drawn out fight, you'll probably get to cast your Final Splendor, your big hit DPS skill, once or maybe twice more in the course of a fight. So it kind of evens itself out. It's kind of up to you what you personally prefer. I like Execution of Revelation, I just like how it looks like, I like how it feels like. So that is why I am using that one. So let's then do a quick demonstration of what a rotation would look like. So we just apply our Adrenaline first, then we send our big nuke, we activate our damage buff, make sure our movement speed skill stays applied, T skill, there we go, and then now we are gonna go into our gauge building phase. So for this one, we're mainly just going to be using our utility skills. This time around, I'm keeping Sword of Revelation ready, or Execution of Revelation ready, for when we get our damage buff. So here we send the big nuke, activate the damage buff, movement speed, send the 3 big DPS skills, and then we can use our sub DPS skills. And then we are just back to building up our identity gauge. And as you can see in Trixion, I don't have a support, so I'm kinda struggling for mana at the moment. But when you're in a normal raid, you usually don't really have to worry about mana that much. And then the next DPS cycle, as you can see, our T skill is ready again. So for this one, we can skip out on Execution of Revelation as one of our 3 spenders. And that's basically how her playstyle works. So let's then talk about build. First thing that you want to do, get the critical elixir set. You want to build 100% crit rate on her because of how her arc passive works. More on that in just a second. But you don't need the master set for that, so you can just go critical on her. Engravings look like this. Ideally, you run Keen Blunt over Hitmaster, but because I didn't power pass this character, or express event it rather, I didn't get a 7/7 stone, so I just collected a bunch of stones from my alts, and this was the only good one that I cut. So that's why I'm running Hitmaster for now. She can run Hitmaster, by the way, if you want to do so, but Keen Blunt is going to be slightly stronger, so just a small note over there. For gems, damage gem on the X skill, you can put one on there, which is really cool. So if you have a high level damage gem, like a level 8, level 9, maybe a tier 3, level 10 or something, put it on this, your identity skill, as that is going to make up about 40% of your total damage output. And we put a cooldown gem on all of our synergy skills, so Foresight Slash, Lunging Stab, and Sword of Revelation all get a cooldown gem. Judgment Stigmata, Whisper of Judgment both get a damage gem. And then we put damage and cooldown on our 2 main DPS skills. For the filler skill, we also use a damage gem if we're using Execution of Revelation. If you're using Meteor Strike, then you can put a cooldown gem on Whisper of Judgment instead. So let's then move on to our arc passive. So for evolution, it looks kind of like this. You'll probably want to go 30 points into crit, but because I have Adrenaline Relic at level 2, I can take 1 point out of crit and put 1 into swiftness. If you have maxed out Relic Adrenaline, you could take 1 point out of Keen Sense and put it into Limit Break, for example, or maybe even into Boundless MP to get more cooldown reduction, but this will give you more damage, so you probably just want to put it on Limit Break. Enlightenment, just go straight down and take this note. Something important to note about the 4th note is that this will make your Z skill, your damage buff, apply to the next 3 damage skills that you use, because without this it will only apply to 1 skill. So once you unlock this, your gameplay is going to change a little bit. And then for the leap tree, looks like this. We can't really take Transcendent Power because we want the cooldown reduction for our hyper skill to line up with the rest of our rotation. For the final note, you kind of get to choose. This is just going to be a faster casting version. It does 75% bonus damage, whereas this is becoming a combo skill with an 87.5. So this does slightly more damage. This is going to be easier to land though, so I'll show you what this one looks like. It's just going to be one fast cast like this, whereas if we were to take this other node down here, this turns it into a combo skill with a perfect zone. So this is not a holding skill, this is a combo skill. You need to press the button twice, and then you get that perfect zone. So you press once, you press twice in the perfect zone, and then it hits twice and does that big extra damage. So then for skills, we have Foresight Sledge, of course. These are the tripods, Sword of Revelation, tripods, Execution of Revelation, Lunging Stab, Whisper of Judgment, Judgment Stigmata, Requiem Rain, and Requiem Ash. And that is basically what you'll be building. If you want to use Meteor Strike, then you'll take Swift Fingers, Enhanced Stab, and Double Stab if you want to run this one instead. And of course, like all your main DPS skills, you want to put them to 14. But because my character isn't level 70 yet, they're locked at level 17 at the moment. And that is what DPS Valkyrie looks like. It's a pretty fun build to play. There's good damage. It's very comfortable to play as well, because like you've got push immunity on this skill, you've got push immunity on your most important skill to land as well. You've got paralysis on almost everything else. You've got 2 counters, 2 synergy skills. One of your counters even has 2 charges, so she is just very comfortable to play. She's also nice to play with because the synergy that she provides is one of the best synergies in the game, so it's just really nice overall as a DPS class. But she also has a support build, so let's take a look at that one next. So for her support build, she basically does a lot of the things similar to what Paladin does, but kind of mixed in with a little bit of bard or artist, so to speak, mostly with how her identity applies her buffs. So you've got a brand that you will be able to keep up on the boss, you've got your AP buffs, you've got a T skill, you've got an awakening that gives you a fat shield and also gives you a bunch of identity gauge. Then of course you have the identity, which gives you the damage buff, and on top of that it also has a heal attached to that. You've got a shield, you've got some more DR, you got a second AP buff, and then you got a bunch of gauge generation that you can spend on the boss as well. So let's take it one step at a time, shall we? Let's begin with the AP buffs, because those are actually really cool. So as with every support, we have 2 AP buffs that we are going to be rotating between. This is our main AP buff that we will want to be using first, because it has a short cooldown. And while we have that buff active, we can build up our luminary stacks before we use our second AP buff, as this one has a longer cooldown. So we want to make sure luminary is stacked by the time we use this to get the maximum cooldown reduction on it, because without luminary it's going to be very tight to keep our AP buff up 100% of the time. Now what I personally think is so cool about these AP buffs is that they feel kind of like DPS skills. Like this one sends out a bunch of soldiers forward, and this one is literally a gap closer, which is just so incredibly cool. You also don't really have to hit the boss in order for the AP buff to apply, you just need to use it. So you can use it to just dodge out of the way of a pattern, and then you can just dodge back in with your shield or something. So it's really cool how all of that works. This skill also has push immunity on it, so you can just use it to face tank through different mechanics and such, and of course allows you to use it on cooldown when you need it, and not have to care about mechanics that are going on. So yeah, 2 AP buffs, I think they're personally very cool. So yeah, big fan of the whole thematic here. Then of course we have a shield. This shield works very similar to Paladin's shield, where on application it will cleanse negative effects, or at least one negative effect, and it will also heal your party members. There's also the option in this tripod over here to take a bigger shield and a longer shield duration instead of the heal, but I personally decided to stick with the heal as that one just feels kind of nice. Then we have this one. This is your Godsend Law, your Rhapsody of Light. This is going to be a dash towards where you're pointing, and then you can hold open the skill to give the damage reduction to all of the party members inside. We of course have our counter with our 2 charges, and then we have a skill that is just going to be building a bunch of identity gauge for us. Now, the identity kind of does the same things that Paladin's identity does. However, the damage buffing aspect and the healing aspect is separated from each other, and it is kind of applied like artist or bard, I should say, because when we press our damage buff, it's just going to apply in a radius around us, and there's no aura that people need to stand in like with Paladin. Same thing goes for our healing buff. We just press it and we heal our party. They don't have to stay in the aura to get a heal over time, it's just you press the button, instantly healed. So that's just really nice. You can also decide to hold on to the heal for a little while. Just make sure that you use it before you press your Z buff again, because when you press Z, you are getting another usage of your heal as well. So just make sure that you heal before the next damage buff comes out. And that's kind of how Valkyrie support works. You've got your brand that you want to keep up, 1 AP buff, your T skill, then you can use your awakening, get a chunk of identity gauge, put up your identity, use some gauge generation, 2nd AP buff, more gauge generation, shield the party, counter the boss maybe here or there. Make sure your AP buff stays applied. Oh, let's heal the party as well, why not? Then maybe we need a shield or something like that. 2nd AP buff, keep it applied. Skill when you can. And that is pretty much what she is going to be looking like. I guess one last thing to kind of note, which is kind of cool but not super important, is that whenever you use your damage buff, your Z, your next auto attack is going to turn into a ranged auto attack that gives you a shield. And it also gives a shield to the rest of your party for a couple seconds as well. So that's just something to kind of like get some more shielding in your kit, I guess. But it's not really something that you're going to make a lot of use of, because of course, as you can see, we have a lot of skills that we can be casting, and they all have a very short cooldown. So we're not really going to be using our auto attacks all that often. Like, we might weave in some auto attacks here and there, but we are going to be going back to just pressing our normal buttons very quickly. But if you can get into the habit of maybe weaving it in here and there, then it could be kind of nice that you get some extra shielding out of that skill. But yeah, that's pretty much how support Valkyrie works. So let's then talk about gear. So of course with elixirs you want Luminary, level 2. Don't pay attention to my crit stat because that's coming from my bracelet, as I don't have a good bracelet yet. But yeah, Luminary for the elixirs. Engraving should look something like this. Cut a stone with Awakening. The second thing on the stone doesn't really matter. If you can get drops of ether, it's really nice. If you can't, then, well, that's that. But just make sure you have 2 points in Awakening at least. Expert, Magic Stream, and drops of ether are kind of the usual ones. Max MP, kind of up to you what you run here. Can be vital pointed if the raid requires it. But Max MP just kind of helps a lot with any potential MP issues you might have. Gems. Put a cooldown gem on everything and then a damage gem on the piety skill. This is your identity buff, and then also your 2 AP buffs as well. Make sure you put your biggest cooldown gem you have on Seraphic Leap, as this skill has a very tight cooldown to keep your AP buff active. So that's also why, if it is possible, get Magic Stream to Relic as well. Any Relic updates are going to help with the cooldown reduction. So of course that is going to help with keeping up Seraphic Leap as much as possible as well. So let's then move on to the Arc passive. For this one, it's kind of going to look the same as all other supports. 10 points into Spec, 30 into Swiftness, these 2 nodes, and then MP Furnace. You can run Standing Striker if you want, but do know that every time you get pushed, you lose a stack. And whenever you're losing stacks, your brand power goes down. Whereas with MP Furnace, you always have maximum brand power. It does introduce some potential mana issues, but there are ways for us to build around this. For the Enlightenment, go straight down, 2 points into this one. This final node is very important, as this will grant you 20% cost reduction on your identity skill. So you only need 80% of your identity gauge to use the identity buff rather than the full 100%. So this is a huge node to get. And then the same thing goes for the Leap. Looks kind of like this. Get some Hyper Awakening damage. More awakenings to use during the fight, cooldown on the T skill, and then just also casting speed. And also MP cost reduction is kind of nice. But this is very important, as this will give you 12% identity meter on T skill usage. So every time you use your T skill, 12% identity, just like that. So between these 2 nodes, it's kind of important to work on your karma for this class. So you might need to invest a bit into this class before her supportive playstyle kind of starts to feel good. Because you really want to get at least a node unlocked to level 1, and you also kind of want to put levels into this. But then again, putting stuff into the evolution tree, maxing this out is also going to be affecting your damage quite a bit, or like your damage buffing potential. So she feels kind of like an expensive support, so to speak. She wants a lot of investment for her to be really strong. But once you get her there, I feel like she is going to be a very comfortable support to play and also to play with, because whenever I've been playing this one so far in my raids or in my guardian raids, whatever, I basically don't see the HP bars of my party members drop because of all the shielding and the healing that is going on in this with this class. And she's also just super fun to play. In terms of her skills then, this is what I am personally running. Now, for her brand, most people actually use this one as the standard one. The reason for that is very simple. I'll just use this. Hopefully it works kind of the same on base. This skill, when you apply it, it stays on the floor for a very long time. And it keeps reapplying the brand as long as it's hitting the boss. Now, because of the tripods that you can take on this skill, this one over here, this gives it more range on it. And this makes it so that it tracks the boss, so it basically will always be hitting the boss. There is a downside to it, however, and that is that it does not have paralysis immunity built in. So because of that, if you get hit while you're using the skill, you might not have a brand for like the next 10 seconds, which kinda sucks, to be fair. So that is why I am personally running Truth's Decree, as this one does have built-in paralysis immunity. And on top of that, it also has another way for me to restore mana for me, so MP Furnace, going to be a little bit easier to use, and it also has a very short cooldown, which allows me to fish for quick recharge procs. So because of this, Seraphic Leap has that very tight timing on reapplying your AP buff between like running a high level cooldown gem, making sure Luminary is always stacked, and then having a very short cooldown skill that I can spam to fish for quick recharges. It kind of helps me like get this skill off whenever I need to. So that's personally why I prefer running Truth's Decree. If this is your first time playing support, then maybe it's better to run Circle of Truth, because this makes the AP, the brand uptime so much easier. You only have to cast it like once every 10 seconds, and the AP buff is applied for like 15 seconds or something like that. So it's really good. But if you are like a little bit more aware, if you're fine with spamming your skills a little bit more, then Truth's Decree can maybe be a better option, as it provides a better usage for quick recharge and also gives you back some mana to potentially help with any mana issues you might have because of MP Furnace or something like that. You can also put a quick recharge on Sword of Revelation if you want to do so, but I've put a Welt Rune on there for now. I might switch it to a quick recharge, not 100% sure just yet. But yeah, Sword of Revelation, these are the tripods. Same thing with Truth's Decree. I run these tripods. If you're running Circle of Truth, take Insight, Light's Vestige, which is the brand, and then also Tracker Shield. And then Requiem Rain, we're going for gauge generation this time instead of damage, because of course we're not playing a DPS build. If you're struggling with mana, you can put this on MP cost reduction as well if you want. Same thing with Requiem Ash, need mana, MP cost, don't need it, Swift Fingers. These are the other tripods. This is your shield. Here you can choose to have either the heal attached to the shield or a bigger and stronger shield that lasts for longer. Then we have our first AP buff, cost like this, also has MP cost on it. We have our damage reduction skill, so this gives it that big shield, and then this makes it so that everybody inside the shield gets the damage reduction as well. You can make it so that the duration goes up by 1, or you can give it a further travel distance. And if you take the travel distance, you can go very far with this skill, as you can see right here. Like, we're going basically across the screen with it. So yeah, it has a very big range if you want to do that. Personally, I might switch to this one, to be honest, because the extra 1 second, I usually don't hold it for the full duration, because it's usually not necessary, but I guess it kind of depends on the situation, really. Like, do you need to jump to someone on the other side of the fucking map, or do you need to, like, DR a very long-lasting pattern? Just kind of depends. I'm gonna stick with this for now, but depending on, like, what fight I'm doing, I might switch over to this one, depending on what I'm feeling. And ultimately, Seraphic Leap, these are the tripods. You can take mana as well, but I think that the tenacity just is not worth missing on this skill. Now, you might also notice Swift Wings, 3-second cooldown reduction on hit, but this is kind of griefing if you take this. So I decided to test this out, mostly because of this note over here with Truth's Decree, because uptime on Seraphic Leap is very tight, as I mentioned before. Like, you want all the cooldown reduction in the world to keep this skill active, to keep 100% AP buff uptime. So you might be wondering, why not just take 3-second cooldown reduction on it? Well, if we do that, we're not going to be giving mana to the rest of our party. If you're playing with certain classes that just don't care about mana, then great, you can use that tripod. But if you're playing with classes that are maybe a bit more mana hungry, then you're really griefing if you're not taking this node. That is why I decided to try out Truth's Decree, because this restoration of MP affects all party members. So that's why I was like, maybe this is enough to like allow us to use this tripod instead. But it didn't really work out. People were still running out of mana. So that is why I feel like you should just stick with this and then try and make it so that like quick recharges, high cooldown reduction rune, etc. Cooldown reduction gem on Seraphic Leap to get the cooldown down rather than like use this and then grieve the rest of your party. Again, if you've got like a breaker, a machinist, a scrapper in your party or something, they do not care about mana whatsoever. Run this by all means. But if you have classes in your party that do require you to have good mana regen uptime, then this is griefing and you should just stick to this one. Of course, just like with the DPS build, these should be at level 14 if you are at level 17. And that basically covers support Valkyrie. So overall, I feel like this class is a lot more fun than I was initially giving her credit for. I was not very excited for Valkyrie's release. So much so that I ended up using the Challenge Express on a different character, which I'll have a video on very soon. But now that I've got some time to play around with Valkyrie, both the support and the DPS build, I was very pleasantly surprised by how much fun this class actually ended up being. And I'm slowly working my way up to get her to 1680, and once she's there, I will probably put it in my main roster. Not quite sure who I'm going to push out for her just yet. Maybe I'll just play her as a 7th character for now, where she can just do the raids and get free boxes, because I will be buying all the boxes on her for a little while, especially for Belshazzar, for example, because getting that karma up is going to be very important for her. So while I'm doing that, she might just be a 7th character, and then maybe by then, by the time she's more finished, I might know who I want to replace for her. But right now, I'm just really much enjoying the class. She's very fun to play. Both of the builds feel really good to play. Different playstyles in like the DPS build is fine as well, like depending on what you personally want to play around with. She's fun to have in your party as well. Like if she plays the DPS build, you've got a very nice synergy to play with. And you also know that she will probably do good damage because she's very easy to do damage on. And for her support, she's very comfy to play around with as well. Just that right now, when it comes down to the damage buffing aspect, it's probably not going to be all there just yet because she does need some investment into that karma system. But once that's there, on top of having the comfy shields, the DR, the constant healing output as well, you're also going to have the damage output later on once the karma system does get finished a bit more. And that's going to make for a very nice extra support addition to the game. More supports in the game is always good because there's so few of them. So having one with a very fun playstyle is something that I definitely like to see, because honestly for me, I would probably play her as mainly as a support, because the supportive playstyle I think is just so cool, with like one of your damage skills being literally a dash, then like the huge gap closer where you can go in and save your party members. It's just really cool, like the get behind me as you try to shield your party from damage. It's just really cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting my Valkyrie all the way up to 1680, and then maybe go higher on her, who knows. I do have the like Road to Valkyrie on her right now, which means I'll get rewards up to 1700, I believe. So this does give me a little bit more incentive to push her all the way, but I'm not quite sure about that yet. Like right now, you can see my gold. I am poor at the moment, but maybe in a couple of weeks' time, I will get her there. But we'll see about that when we get there. For now, I'm just going to enjoy her where she is. I'll slowly push it to 1680, finish off all of the systems that she still needs to have finished, because I didn't challenge express her, so there's a lot of things to work on right now. But it's kind of fun, like kind of getting that feeling again of building up a character from scratch, instead of just having everything basically given to you for free with the express events. But yeah, enough yapping from me. That is Valkyrie. She's very fun to play. Let me know in the comments what you think about her. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them down there as well. And with that, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.